I am Misha here, and this is a gun you have seen featured in several videos, but I don't think we've ever done a video just dedicated to it. This is the Italian Beretta, or Beretta Maadi 1951, or M1951, chambered for 9x19 Parabellum 9mm Luger. And brought this out to the range for a couple of reasons. These have been on the market surplus here and there for years, and a batch most recently came in that are about $250 to $300 for a rougher condition and $350 or so for nice condition. With that in mind, Jake is considering grabbing one, and he asked me if we could bring mine out, and sure, why not? Haven't had it out in a while. And I figured since we were bringing the Italian version out, we'd also bring an Egyptian contract version made by Maadi, known as the M951. One was available, so I grabbed it. Kind of compare and contrast the guns, and take them both to the range to see how they shot. So with that in mind, how did the Beretta do? Beretta 1951. Beretta 1951. Not that we ran a whole lot of rounds through either of these, but we had no failures with the Italian version. Even trying brass and steel case in it. What about the Egyptian then? How did it handle? Egyptian Helwan.
I just got hit in the top of the head with the shell casing. Clear.
Egyptian Helwan. And the Egyptian Maadi, later known as the Helwan, also digested a couple of mags of brass and steel without complaint or issue. Jay said they kind of remind him of Makarovs. I can see that with the curved grip strap, Bakelite type grips, although to me they're a little more P38ish, which makes sense. Well, the history of this gun dates back to post-World War II Italy. Up to this point, they had been doing simple blowback pistols. Their very first pistol was the 1915 in 9mm Glycinti. They would also do the 1923 in 9mm Glycinti. They would also do a slew of 32 caliber blowback guns, the 1917, the 1919, the 1931, the 32. Then they would get to the model 1934 in 380, or as they called it, 9mm Corto, and the 1935 in 32 7.65 Browning. And the 1934 would be the standard Army pistol during World War II and afterwards, and the 1935 would be the standard Navy pistol. But World War II showed that 9mm, a more powerful cartridge, was a good idea. So work would begin at Beretta, Pietro Beretta, and the same man who designed the 1915 Tullio Marangini would start work on the pistol here that would eventually become the 1951. It is a pretty straightforward gun by today's standards. It is single action only. If I can do this on camera. There we go. Doot. Has an interesting cross bolt safety, kind of like you'd see on a lot of shotguns. Has its mag release in an interesting place down here at the heel of the grip. The magazines are single stack 8-shot, although there was a 10-round mag, extended mag, made for an alternative version. As you see, there's a fixed lanyard loop at the base of the grip, 2-piece Bakelite grip panels, fixed iron sights set at 50 meters. Overall length is about 8 inches. It weighs right around 2 pounds. Has a 4.5-inch barrel. Typical Beretta open top slide. It does have a last round hold open with manual release control. Blued finish is standard. They would finalize the design in 1951, test it, try it out, and enter it into limited production in 1953. Now, the earliest guns would actually have an alloy frame. During World War II, Germany and others had worked with Dural to save weight. But unfortunately, by the 1950s, while they had perfected the recipe enough to work with simple blowback guns like .32, even .380, it just wasn't quite there for full power guns. So after a couple of years of production using the alloy frames, they went back to a steel frame. They would also extend the slide slightly to improve reliability, and a few other small but important tweaks to get it where it needs to be. And therefore this entered into full-scale mass production in 1956. And production would continue for just shy of 25 years, ending in 1980. Now, Beretta was not making this gun for the commercial civilian market. He was always targeting the police, law enforcement, security markets, also the military. And it had partial success. Now this, like I said, was their first lock breech, full caliber, full size pistol. It was also Marangani's last design. He actually passed away while this was still in the final stages of development. So it's really kind of doubtful how much he contributed directly to the design, but his name on the project was important and was kind of an honorific of nothing else. The Italian Navy would adopt this as its standard issue sidearm, replacing the old 1935. However, the Italian Army would not adopt it. Instead, it would continue using the 1934, which actually it wouldn't drop until the 80s itself. Also, quite a few Italian police and border security agencies would adopt this pistol, again usually replacing older .32 caliber guns. So it would see considerable adoption for that day and time. Keep in mind it was going up against a lot of surplus guns from World War II. It also had considerable international success. Egypt was an early adopter. It would have written initially the Egyptian army would purchase 50,000 Italian-made examples. This is where the designation M1951 comes from. Its earliest guns would have a simplified mag catch down here. They would also have slightly different sights. And they would try these against what we know today as the Tok Egypt, which is basically a Hungarian Tokarev variant. But they would ultimately select the Beretta design. They felt it was a little more powerful, a little more, well, not necessarily powerful, but you get the idea, a little more accurate, and they felt that it held up to the rigors of the desert. I think a lot of it had to do with this very generous ejection port open-top slide. So in 1955, they placed it in a second order and officially adopted it. And with this order, they would go to the more standard mag release and sights. They had found their larger sights, while easier to acquire, weren't so easy getting in and out of holsters. And I guess they felt the weight savings of the cost savings of the simplified mag catch just weren't worth the expense, plus it didn't retain the mag as reliably. And it could crack like any spring steel part. So the earlier Egyptian guns would be Beretta made, but then the Maadi factory outside of Cairo would obtain a license to manufacture and introduce this in the late 50s or 60s as the Helwan pistol. Pretty much a straight copy or clone. And they would sell these commercially as well as, of course, to their own military. Inner Arms was actually an early importer of these to the USA in the 70s and 80s. Another Mideast user, they would eventually also make a licensed production version, was Iraq, that made it as the Tariq pistol. And actually, Egypt would end up with quite a few 1951s in the 60s and through the 70s, many of which it had directly captured from Egypt, meaning some could be Egyptian production, others could be original Italian production. Again, they worked well in the desert. So, yeah, let's take a look under the hood at what makes this gun tick. Now, normally I'm perfectly happy to field strip guns right on camera, but since I only have one hand to use while I'm doing this myself, unless I were to use the force, I have no great way to do this. But it's a very straightforward process. You have your takedown lever here. You simply pull your slide back until you can rotate this in the horizontal, and then your slide comes off, revealing the guts, such as they are. Here's that 8-round mag again. Single stack, has this little toe on the bottom. That's the cutout for the mag release. Up here is our slide. As you see, a straight open top design. Simple sights. No safety in here because that's in the lower frame. Typical recoil spring with guide rod. And the heart of it, the barrel. And the heart of that, the locking block. Now, if this system looks familiar to you, with this wedge and pin, it's for one of two reasons. Either you are a history buff, a World War II buff, and recognize this from the German Walther P38, which, yes, that's exactly what Beretta copied when they did this. Or you're a more modern individual and you recognize it from the US military's M9, which is loosely based on this pistol here. Either way, all three guns use this locking system, and it has the benefit of where your barrel does move front to back horizontal a bit, it doesn't tip up and down at all, giving better potential reliability, and all that good stuff. This just locks into the frame here in these recesses to provide the locked breech. Gives a nice smooth recoil impulse. Tends to be pretty forgiving about ammo types, and because of this open top slide, it's pretty forgiving when it comes to dust, dirt, debris, mud, snow, everything else. These pistols are known for reliability, and they are quite straightforward and simple, hence why they ended up being quite successful. When they went to the Model 92, M92, 92S as it later would be, 92F, and so on and so forth, they basically kept the slide and locking system going to a new frame. They would finally get that alloy frame worked out. They would also blow out the mag well to have 15 shots instead of 8. And they, of course, would introduce a new trigger system, which offered double and single action. So the 92 was a greatly product improved and modernized version of the 1951. The 92 started to appear in 1976, 1977, and by 1980 was really starting to replace these in the military. It also replaced the older 1934s in the Army, as well as these in the Navy, and of course with police service. They would keep on a little longer in Egypt, but of course eventually would be replaced by newer pistols there as well. So what are the differences between the Italian and the Egyptian version? Beretta I can't talk, 1951, there we go.
Yeah, not bad.
First and foremost, of course, as you would guess, the markings are different. But beyond that, there are no mechanical, functional, or even feature differences. However, there is a difference in manufacturing quality, fit and finish. The Italian, of course, has a shinier, more polished bluing. The Egyptian is blued, but you know. There are more tool marks left inside the Egyptian slide and frame. The Italian is much more polished internally, which really doesn't matter, except it does make the slide a little smoother. They're both actually quite smooth, but the Egyptian's a little grittier. One thing you can see if you look at the mag release, mag catch, has relatively coarse checkering, whereas the Italian, a little bit finer checkering. Also looking at the other controls, the slide release and the safety and the hammer, we can see a similar difference. So that's really it. As you would expect, a little more attention to detail. But as far as reliability, they're equal. QC isn't as nice on the Egyptians, so the chances of getting a blim or even, a manufacturing mistake on one of the Maadi guns was always greater. But if you get one that checks out, that was issued, they tend to work pretty well. Anyone who's ever had a Maadi produced Kalashnikov knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's just kind of honestly part of their charm. Egyptian manufacturing. Well, Jay seemed to enjoy shooting these, so I'm sure he'll probably pick one up. This one I've had for a very long time. Got in one of the Century batches years ago. This one, like I said, a local friend had, and initially I just asked to borrow it for this video. Figured, why not have both? Plus we have a control if one of them was giving a jam or something, we'd have another one to test out, or another mag, but no, they both worked. Jim dandy. Well, let me know what you think of this. If you're interested in Beretta pistols, we might be able to do a little more in-depth video on a few of their other designs. Jay and I have always liked them. They're neat, they feel good, they're smooth, they have nice triggers, and they're reliable. Anyway, we appreciate you tuning in. If you could, like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to help support the channel, please click on the link and check out our Patreon page. This is Misha, and on behalf of Jay, we will both catch you very soon, next time.